whatever you do drops straight into the water.
It's the source of the Singapore River. No other country can let you see the bottom of a river.
I believe that could be one of the theory why this place was called Bras Basah.
Once there were lots and lots of rivers all over the place. They moved people and things, gave life, caused death. Then they disappeared. What happened? And what stories can we recover from our lost rivers? The water is all around, but despite being islanders, we aren't aware of its presence, be it under, over, or by our sides. Today, reservoirs, rivers, and kilometers of canals and drains, or longkangs, crisscross the island. In a previous life, many were rivers and streams. Centuries of man-made alterations have turned the natural courses into more unnatural conduits to human needs. On the wayside are memories of life along the rivers. One river was a standout. It provided fresh water and helped clinch the deal. And nope, it's not this one.
The Singapore River was not the source of fresh water. Sungei Bras Basah, which was on the other side of Fort Canning Hill, and was not as influenced by tides and by salt, was a better source of fresh water.
Here lies Sungei Bras Basah, later known as Stamford Canal. Although hidden now, it still flows, and parts of it go below a busy shopping mall.
And then if you now go underneath that, the underpass, you can see this indentation hanging from the ceiling, and that's where the actual canal was, is today. That's actually the depth of the Stamford Canal. No other country can let you see the bottom of a river, and we have it. That's the Stamford Canal today.
On the street level, unknowingly, many of us walk on its covered waters. It was a different story decades before. Up to the 1970s, the river was an open canal, and in earlier times, even flowed with fresh water. Early day maps labeled it as freshwater river. It was this USP that sealed Singapore's fate.
Fresh water was one of the primary reasons the British chose Singapore as a site of colonization.
It almost didn't happen if it wasn't for an unsung hero, Daniel Ross, captain of the East India Company's survey fleet. As a surveyor, he was able to read river mouths.
One of the most important things is to see if there's a coloration in the water, for example. So it's like yellowish or reddish. So that might be a suggestion that there's a stream or water coming up from inland.
Ross was engaged by Raffles to search the busy Straits of Malacca for a suitable site to base a new British trading post.
They looked at other places, islands in this area. Bintan, they looked at Karimun.
Then Daniel Ross suggested, why not we go and try out Singapore? In his map in 1819, the first map that Daniel Ross did, there is a red river. I think that's the suggestion that there is actually fresh water from their perspective from the sea.
For example, locates things like the Kallang River has fresh water. It has various notations that say like watering place, in which ships could go and restock their supplies of water.
Upon closer inspection, then we found that there's what we call Stamford Canal. At that time, it's just a freshwater. We just simply call it freshwater stream.
This map was like an IG story that captured the moment. While Raffles was negotiating a deal, Ross was laying out hydrographic directions. Once the deal was signed, Ross's team completed a panoramic approach to Singapore, like a guide to the new port of call and watering place, which is Stamford Canal today. The river was an important asset because back then, the British were restricted to only a sweep of land between Tanjung Malang and Tanjung Katong, and a width of a cannon shot, about 5 kilometers.
So it's a very narrow strip of land. So that's why you see all this planning happening very close to the shoreline. There is a famous map, now known as the Jackson's Plan. It's a visualization of Raffles' final instructions for town planning before he left for good.
Raffles wanted a reservoir to store the river's waters. Eventually, a well was created, tapping water from the river, according to an eyewitness account from that period.
The people must have taken fresh water from the sides of the left bank. As evidence of it, there is still standing a covered well. I remember native boats from the east coasts of the peninsula came in sampans with round black jars.
Raffles also wanted a school for bright minds, and a few decades later, an eponymous institution became a landmark of the area. It stood in the same spot for over 150 years until it was demolished. An alumnus of the school was Mr. Peter Chan, retired MD, now photophile.
I spent my mid-60s to early 70s in that school in RI, and we have lots of fun. On one side of the school was bounded by Bras Basah Road, North Beach Road, and of course the Stamford Canal.
This past, now erased by a dramatic landscape overhaul, still intrigues a younger heritage tour leader.
My name is Sarafian bin Saleh. I'm a mechanical engineer, an author, and a heritage researcher.
He wants to know more about Peter's lived experiences by this historic river.
So, with your story and my story, I have a better picture on how to share it with the public.
The canal mouth is there. The mouth of the canal was over the other side, right?
Yeah, correct.
Now, if you look over at the yellow line there,
Okay,
that will be the start of the wave,
right.
all the way to, somewhere here.
Okay, so from my point of view, it looks like almost 10 meters.
The river mouth was wide enough for outdoor training by the school's scout group. With the river gone, the building gone, what remains is only a tiny reminder.
So when was this Sungei Bras Basah or Stamford Canal covered? Was it during your time or after your time?
No, it will be much after my time. I think when they were building Raffles City,
Right.
this would be the canal over here
Right.
on Stamford Road.
Okay.
It's over there.
Where was your class?
Sec 1, I would be in this place here.
Okay.
And Sec 2, we'll move over to this part of the building.
Okay.
Sec 3, we move over to this building here.
Right.
Now, this building I was telling you is got hantu on the third floor. Okay?
Third level, okay.
Which happened to be my pre-U class. Because when you walk up the steps, you can hear some, repeated sounds of steps following you.
Okay. Right.
Many photos show the river as a canal with a picturesque bridge. A more rustic one was built during Peter's time.
It was built there by the scouts to help the scouts prepare for the trip up Gunung Tahan.
Gunung.
I think that was in 1970. It was built just in front of the principal's office. So if any schoolboy wants to, play truant, run away from school using the road, using the bridge, right?
He
The
can
rope
see
bridge.
it right away.
He can see.
To keep an eye on things too, the British built on the other side of the river the first battery in Singapore.
Battery actually means a suite of artillery guns or a suite of cannons. So that battery roads still remain. Yeah. That suite of cannons were actually protecting the Singapore harbour front.
Fort Fullerton eventually took over the port's defence, and the guns at Stamford Canal were refunctioned into a very loud clock. The guns sounded the time of day for people and ships at sea. Not many had timekeepers back then, so there were booms at noon and at 4 p.m. Time to wind things up and have dinner, which was commonly around 4:30 p.m., after which people socially networked at the Padang. In later years, the guns were removed and the place became a gossip site.
Where is Scandal Point?
There's an open, flat surface, convenient for walking and strolling. So more and more people gather there. The Scandal Point today, due to the reclamation of Singapore coastline, is actually at the southern side, southern face of the Singapore Recreation Club, on the Padang itself, in the middle of Padang, because the Padang today is actually reclaimed. Half of it was reclaimed. So half of it which was the original shoreline, was the scandal point.
Chief Surveyor John Turnbull Thompson was at Scandal Point when he painted a scene of mid-19th century social life on the esplanade.
There would be pony races around the edges of the Padang, and then, you know, they eventually build a church there. They establish other government buildings or even hotels and things like that. So it brings it under a bit more of a controlled, disciplined space.
Another drawing shows a busy esplanade just by the mouth of Stamford Canal. That's possibly Scandal Point. And standing tall is a huge tree upon which first resident William Farquhar hung his revenge act.
Farquhar had a pet dog.
Based on a memoir by Munshi Abdullah, who accompanied Raffles to Singapore in 1819, Farquhar was walking his dog along Rochor River in 1822.
And there was a crocodile, and the crocodile came out of the water and ate the curious dog, chomped down and had a meal. This angered Farquhar so that he had his assistants and other people in the town hunt down this crocodile, and they killed the crocodile and strung it up and put it on public display for killing Farquhar's dog.
That tree no longer exists, but the control over the forces of nature continues. What's around the bend? Stamford Canal was known as Sungei Bras Basah, and its 5-kilometre course now wends across Orchard Road to Tanglin. Though hidden from view today, the urban landscape gives it away, and hobby researchers have taken notice.
Okay, you stop here for a while. You just look at SMU.
Yes.
It's curving to the right
Right.
because the canal was curving to the right.
Okay. Let me just show you something. Peter, look at it. Now, this is our Sungei Bras Basah. Now, look at this map. Now, this map shows the bend.
Yeah.
So from there, where we started,
It was straight, right?
Was straight until what you've just
Over
mentioned.
here.
Over here, it actually swerved 30 degrees to the right.
The bend is analogous to a turning point in the country's fortunes. The 1824 Anglo-Dutch Treaty legitimized Britain's claim to the entire island. Almost immediately, a penal colony was created. For the next 50 years, Singapore was administered out of the East India Company's Calcutta office. Convicts from overcrowded Indian prisons were sent out here and to other Straits territories.
Over there, it was the jail for Indian convicts in those days,
Oh.
19th century.
Okay.
But not in my time.
Not your time.
The prison complex in Singapore became a landmark at the river's bend, and at its height, housed thousands of convicts, mostly from India and some from Hong Kong. They became essential workers, building permanent structures to solidify British presence. Roads reached further inland. Bricks and mortar replaced wood and atap. The convicts built their own compound, the cathedral nearby, and the government house in Fort Canning. And here lies a mystery. A pair of monopterons, or cupolas, sit silent in the park, not revealing what they were for or why they were there. We know they were designed by Chief Architect George Coleman, who had created a blueprint for the prison complex. This book, published at the end of the 19th century, has the answer. The monopterons sheltered a bell that summoned the inmates for their monthly roll call. The structures were built by the convicts themselves. The convicts also performed other services like road sweeping and general public and domestic maintenance. So some Indian terms entered the local patois, like ghat. Described as steps to a river, there were many ghats in Singapore, but the most famous one today is Dhoby Ghaut. Dhoby means washerman, so Dhoby Ghaut means steps for washermen, and they hung out at the bend.
Dhoby village is interestingly located at the bend of the river. So at the bend of the river probably suggests that the water flow there is not so fast.
The world has many Dhoby Ghauts today, with the largest one in Madras. By and large, only the big items like bed sheets get the Dhoby treatment.
They used to hang all the bed sheets on the side of the canal. This is park here is Dhoby Ghaut, all the way to in front of Cathay building. And then you would see the Indian Dhobis
Yes.
washing bed sheets and hanging to dry over here.
That's your time, no?
My time.
A university stands today where the prison complex used to be. A solitary tree as a reminder of those years. Some say it was planted by a prisoner. The river was named after wet rice, and according to some, it also has a Bugis link.
I gathered about the Bugis traders. You know, when they brought in their rice from Sulawesi to Singapore, their sacks of rice got wet. And they actually dried their rice on this field.
So all their boats went up sailing here.
And they're not sailing, they beach at the beach road. So they unload all their rice packs and they lay it here. So that was one of the theory why Bras Basah or wet rice was called.
Another theory can be found around another bend, revealing something not seen for a long time.
First time I see
Is
fresh
it?
water.
First time, right?
Clean water.
Yes, this is the only spot of Sungei Bras Basah that's exposed. So we can see today that this is a freshwater canal. It's so fresh that fishes could thrive in it. Before Raffles came to Singapore, it was once a wet rice paddy field. Just try to imagine there were paddy fields in front of us. There were paddy fields along this road, which actually runs in parallel to this Stamford
So
Canal.
you need clean water.
Yes. So they actually use the water to irrigate and have this rice planted. So I believe that could be one of the theory why this place was called Bras Basah.
The fresh water also irrigated the orchards in this part of the world. Nutmeg plantations used to sprout all along where these shops are today. Eventually, everything went to seed. In living memory, Orchard Road was known for different things to different generations, but the common denominator was the Stamford Canal.
I do recall there was a canal on the right side, and my dad told me that that was once a sungai, a river. So it was very clean and proper, and that was my memory.
Yeah, when you just talk about the canal being very clean, that would probably be in the 1980s. In my era, was in the 1960s to early 70s. In my time, the water was all black.
That didn't deter riverside or longkang dining, which was the preferred alfresco option, and the most famous one was named Glutton Square.
In those days, the Glutton Square behind was this canal, and the water is black. By day, it was the car park, public car park. By 5 o'clock every day, the cars have to move out. Then the street hawkers with push cart will park over there. Now open air hawker centers, they wash their bowls and the plates not from the public tap. It's just a bucket of water and a wash, and then they will just throw on the ground. All the water will flow into the longkang. The longkang flows into the canal, so it dirties the whole canal. The stench accompanied you when you had your makan at night. And it was very popular with locals, besides the sprinkle of Ang Mohs who come here.
Okay, so this back to this Stamford Canal, how exposed was it along Orchard Road?
It was open. And I do remember it was open all the way to the Main Court Hotel.
Main Court Hotel, okay. Maybe it's still open or covered. We can check it out.
In the caverns of a car park, Peter goes back to a scene from his prime.
Hey, look at that, man.
If you look behind me, this was the former Main Court. Right, you see the canal goes under this hotel.
Yeah. Okay.
And why I remember about that hotel was because that was my first job as a pianist in 1975.
I see.
And we will come out here,
Okay.
overlooking the canal.
Right.
And then we used to smoke during our interval break. You see.
Was the water clear or was it as dirty, murkiest?
We couldn't see because it was night time, you see.
From here, Stamford Canal, or the former Sungei Bras Basah, disappears. and re-emerges as a source within a World Heritage Site.
So this place in Botanic Gardens is just one of the confluences. So all this
So all
actually...
the streams came into here.
Then it went underneath your Main Court Hotel
Right.
and eventually afloat towards your reference institution and spill out to sea.
I see.
So
Quite a long river.
It's quite a long river. So I think we've talked a lot about this Stamford Canal. No? The throat is getting very dry.
Oh yeah, mine is dry also.
Okay, let's have coffee.
Okay,
Let's
come.
go.
Our blue Danubes became mostly black because of the toil they took. The two hardest working of all, Rochor and Kallang rivers, flowed into the same basin. In the past, these mighty watercourses stretched right into the heart of the island. The rivers have since been severely shortened. Today, Rochor is a mere kilometre-long canal. Once, it flowed from Bukit Timah Hill to the sea and enriched many communities along the way. At the mouth, it was part of an ancient port town.
Southeast Asian merchants and traders would stop in the Rochor River area. And so therefore, it was seen as a more local area for ships to come to anchor and exchange goods.
So the river's location made it ideal for traders to moor their vessels under houses which were built on piles over the water.
So what today is Beach Road or HDB estates, before was a trading port. It was a trading port where the Bugis merchants were there.
So while the Singapore River, on one hand, was anchored in the European and Chinese mercantile activity, the Rochor Kallang River system operated as like its twin. So you can imagine that this entire riverine landscape, right, was a workspace for these communities that came to Singapore.
There were equal amount of Bugis merchants and Hainanese traders. So the Hainanese were here, and they lived with the Bugis to trade.
There were Chinese who do work on big kilns, sawmills, and wooden boats.
And on the upper reach, we have the Baoyanese. So the Baoyanese settlement, they settled on the right bank of Rochor Canal, and they had all their pondoks there.
Early Baoyanese who came to Singapore, they were primarily traders. We can find maps that point to the existence of their settlement from as early as the 1820s. They came from Surabaya. So where they would be located today is between Victoria Street and Jalan Sultan, what is today known as Hotel Boss.
The Baoyanese ponduks, or pontuks, were used as community shelters and warehousing, and those still standing today remind us of the business focus of the Rochor area. Alongside native commerce were heavy industries all along Rochor River.
Rochor River, in that area, that was heavily developed in the 19th century. You had sawmills, you had brickworks, you had all sorts of industry going on down there because of the access to the shipping.
In the age before motors and well-developed roads, riverine transport was the way to go. A lot of heavy items went by water.
Sawmills usually situated beside the river so that timber can transport next to the sawmills. They can also rely on the river to transport the wooden planks to elsewhere or even to export. In fact, Singapore was one of the major timber exports countries in the world. Timbers usually came from Indonesia, entered from Kallang River mouth, and then moved along Kallang River and Rochor River and transported to the various sawmills.
This part of Syed Alwi Road was known as Sawmill Street, or Siong Lim Pang Long in Hokkien. And in one of the most famous sawmills, a barber once made a great escape. Like many buildings in the area, The sawmill was turned into an interrogation center during the Japanese occupation. Many who were brought into these centers didn't get out alive, but there were exceptions.
This barber by the name of Liao Qingxing, he came from China. He was also a leader of this fundraising relief District 2. When Singapore was occupied by Japan, he was captured by the Japanese and locked at Songlin sawmill. Together with him was some other comrades. Right? So they were tortured. One of the comrades very heavily injured, even with house flies swarm around the wounds. So Barber Liao, he observed and he found that this Japanese military police was quite scary about infection. So he exploited that and told the military police, this guy was badly injured, he may spread certain disease. So military police say, yeah, you brought him away. Because of that, they managed to escape from the Japanese.
In close proximity to the sawmills was the ice factory. Before ice came in cubes, they were in blocks, mostly imported from America and housed along the Singapore River. Then, in the 20th century, a company made ice from scratch using a compressor system. In other words, it was a giant freezer, strategically located by Rochor River because of the dust next door.
Some sawdust actually supplies to the Singapore icebergs nearby. This ice cube was actually covered with sawdust and rice sack. So this sawdust and rice sack will serve as insulators to prevent the ice from melting. Loaded on lorry and transported to the various coffee shops.
Ice, therefore, becomes an important business in this area, particularly along the Rochor area, because that's also where slaughterhouses were. So once you have meat, you then need to preserve it or sell it immediately.
Some meat had to be kept alive and slaughtered when required, like beef, or milk, which was freshly squeezed.
Beef is beloved by the British, the colonizers, the European elite. However, Singapore is not an ideal place to raise cattle. Cattle had to be imported to Singapore. The first place cattle were primarily imported from was Thailand, Siam, and then eventually mostly coming from Western Australia on ships.
With limited local pastures, they were penned in the river to recover from their weary travels before slaughter. The cattle trade boomed in the mid-1800s and attracted Indians to work and stay in this area, indicated on the map as Buffalo Village, or locally known as Kandang Kerbau, or cattle pen. Kandang Kerbau, or KK today, is associated with its eponymous hospital, which recorded several scientific firsts.
Achievement number 1.
KK delivered the world's highest number of babies in 1966, a Guinness World Record which was held for the next decade. At its busiest, a baby was delivered every 13 minutes and 11 seconds. Many older Singaporeans can say that they drew first breaths alongside the Rochor River.
Achievement number 2.
100 years earlier, an astounding world event was recorded at KK's observatory. Victorian-era scientists noted the connection between weather and ill health. In the 1860s, a meteorological observatory was established and helmed by a medical officer. Equipped with a list of elaborate instruments that reflected Victorian-era high-tech, the observatory became the center for weather reports, which were made public thrice a day. The center also recorded the Great Comet of 1882 on September 7th, seen in bright daylight. Another river nearby housed another observatory, which performed a pivotal role in the global crusade.
To boldly go where the magnets flow.
Kallang River is Singapore's longest, with an ancient history noted by 15th century travelers, and the site of many activities, including a magnetic crusade. 19th century superpowers competed to map Earth's magnetic field and to locate the South Pole. British colonies were roped into the endeavour. Only a few colonies had fixed observatories. Singapore had one, and it was located by the Kallang River, somewhere near today's Kallang MRT track, city-bound.
It's far away from modern civilization because you cannot have any metallic objects around. The project was renewed on a 3-year basis, 1839, then 1841, 1845 or something. So by 1845, the British Parliament had been said, yeah, this is enough. So that's why the project ended also with 1849. It's an interesting thing that happened on the Kallang River.
Once past mid-century, Kallang River was beginning to be pretty choked up with discards from human activities, particularly the biological kind. Simple wood structures provided for the number 1s and 2s.
There's just a seat with a hole. Whatever you do drops straight into the water.
Along Kallang rivers, there were multiple so-called water villages, which means all the stilt houses were built on the river. So you imagine how were all this human waste, food waste, how will you dump them, you know? Therefore, you can see toilets actually built on the river. You can see food waste dumped into the river.
The river stank to the heavens, man.
The rivers in Singapore, to be honest, were not necessarily filled with sewage, but it was simply just human use and overuse. And as the population grew, the rivers became dirtier.
Kallang, being the longest, also had connectivity to other rivers. This made it very convenient for island-wide travel.
So if someone were to go upstream from Kallang River until near the end, and then you can traverse through the land and then cross over to the Serangoon River system. So that's one way a lot of local populations move around interior from one coast to another.
At its mouth, Kallang River formed a large basin where ships were set to sail.
Kallang area had a very long shipbuilding history.
Kallang River Basin, to me, is the first industrial estate of Singapore.
So these boatyards, they actually constructed tongkangs and tuakor. Tongkang, you will see the bow and stern, both ends were sharp. So it can sail either way. Tuakor, the bow is a bit sharp, and the stern is flat. So tuakor was motorized, but tongkang was not. Because tongkang was bigger, so tongkang actually can travel far. They travel in open seas. They went to Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam to transport timber and rice back to Singapore.
For short-range travel and smaller cargoes, there was the ubiquitous sampan. These underrated worker bees were easily navigable in the crowded water highways. The sampan was sometimes the only means of transport for riverine communities like the people of Kampong Pulau Minyak, a tidal islet in Kallang River, often associated with the temple on stilts. The kampong is also known for its quality moonshine.
My father-in-law was a resident on Kampong Pulau Minyak. In the good old days, there were many people like to make sambal wine. It means rice wine. The main ingredient is rice mash. Right? The rice mash were fermented and produce alcohol. Right? They actually put into those metal containers, usually made of tin. For many of those villages on land, people will make this sambal wine in that little hut in the forest. For people on Pulau Minyak, it's quite different. They don't have a forest, right? So where do they hide all these containers? Under the mud flat on Kallang River, 1 meter deep from the mud flat surface. During the fermented process, the wine actually releases carbon dioxide. You need a gap to escape. That's why there was a little gap on the container when you hide under the mud flat. It happened that on the day when this authority went around the Pulau Minyak to patrol during low tide, right? So they observed that why were there bubbles on the mud flats, you know? Quite unusual. So they dig further and manage to discover all those secret stuff 1 meter down the mud flat. So that's how they discovered. Since then, okay, you could not make this Pulau Minyak wine anymore.
Not only did the moonshine stop, the entire Pulau Minyak came to an end. Fire consumed the entire kampong in 1964. The residents later moved from ground zero to many feet up into the sky. This era saw plenty of fires ravaging similar kampong homes, signaling the end of the era of riverine settlements. Draining the swamp. It didn't happen overnight. Work to change our waterways began very early on, during the British administration. Sungei Bras Basah and Rochor River were the earliest to be transfigured into canals. The Singapore River, spared from canalization, was the first to be physically meddled with, its belly and mouth widened to better suit port activities. Its multi-pronged form got more and more streamlined over the decades. Of the many tributaries, the only one to be named was the curious Sungai Kuya. An editorial from the 1950s suggested it had something to do with crocodiles, or buaya in Malay, of which there were many in the salty, brackish waters of Singapore's rivers. Another reason could be due to vintage spelling.
In those early days, they used the sound of Q instead of K. So the state of Kedah today is spelled K-E-D-A-H. In those days, it's spelled Kedah, Q-U-E-D-A-H. Yeah. I suspect this Q-U-A-I-A is a misspelling of Q-U-A-L-A, which is pronounced as Kuala.
Kuala means confluence in Malay. Kuya could also be a transliteration of the Hokkien term Kuya-ki, meaning side of stream. Sungai Kuya has since disappeared under streets and canals, with the original confluence starting from today's Ord Bridge to the great beyond. And as for the Singapore River, it has become a shadow of its former self. Once, its ultra-black waters perfectly mirrored centuries of ups and downs, success and struggles, trouble and toil. And then, the 1970s came around. This era heard the call of a new kind of globalization. Singapore's response was to shift away from heavy manual laboring into a chichi class of highly skilled, value-added service providers catering to the multinational companies. To create a conducive, developed world environment, all our rivers were hit with change, and the Singapore River was the main target. Today, the Singapore River has become a no-head, no-tail watercourse. Its mouth no longer washes out to sea, and its source is generally said to be at the Alexandra Canal, a former river. But those with scientific maps can prove that it goes further than that.
In the Singapore geology map, you see all these longish lines, finger-looking lines, and those are very distinctive of our old river courses, or even present-day ones. So that becomes a very good indicator of where our river had actually flowed through over the years. We are located here along the Ulu Pandan Canal. Traditionally, the source of the Singapore River has been identified towards the east, near the Buona Vista MRT station. However, from my personal research on soil map and geology map, the source of the Singapore River is actually further west towards Sungai Ulu Pandan, in this direction.
The source of a river or headwater is usually on high grounds, gushing down like a waterfall. The source of the Singapore River is something else.
See the white drainage outlet over there? The source of the Singapore River is actually somewhere in this vicinity. So that was probably a high ground over here. So the Singapore River come up over here and it flows towards the west, east. And towards this side is the water that goes into Sungai Ulu Pandan. So over the years, due to the flood elevation plan, this upper reach of the Singapore River was actually dug deeper to make it flow towards the west, which you can see now. The water actually flows towards the west and not towards the east over Singapore River. So this is the outcome of this flood elevation plan over the many years.
The floods changed everything. Urban relics speak of a past that was wet, wet, wet. Flood gauges were installed to measure depth of water in low-lying areas. And there were many of such gauges because flooding occurred everywhere and frequently. As sure as the sun would rise, there would be floods each time there was a heavy downpour. Combined with high tides, bad drainage, island-wide floods became the nemesis across generations.
Floods. Yes.
Even my father's collection of old photographs were all destroyed during the floodings.
My father used to hold my hand and walk in the water. So to adult, it's knee length, but to me, it's about waist length already.
So the junction at Farrer Road and Bukit Timah Road is where one of the highest floods took place. And during these floods, everything is washed out. Technical term is hydraulic jump. Because there's a change in the energy level, it becomes this water jump up. So people just step into it and that's it. The water is too fast for you to, even if you want to help, it's too late to help.
And it was in these times that unlikely heroes emerged.
2 boys fell into Rochor Canal when a sudden gush of floodwater overwhelmed them. Mar Singh, a Sikh, heard their shouts, quickly unravelled his turban and threw one end to a boy who was hauled up. Unfortunately, the other boy drowned.
Concrete canalization helped contain the overflowing banks. This began in earnest in the post-independent years. More and more streamlines became streamlined.
Because most of Singapore is very flat, you had to canalise these rivers to have the rainwater run off, conducted away fast enough that you didn't flood out the residents.
Singapore literally engineered itself out of floods.
Besides flood control, rivers were then engineered to collect water.
You needed to dam up streams, you needed to cover streams and collect the water. And therefore, that's when Singapore lost a lot of its rivers or streams that we don't even think of as existing today.
Magritte Reservoir was the product of a concept that impounded or dammed rivers and streams. First introduced to Singapore in the 1850s by Turnbull Thompson.
So he actually blocked the flow of the upper stream of Sungai Wongpo. And because of this action, the reservoir was named Impounding Reservoir. Pierce Reservoir, for the upstream Kallang River, was actually impounded at the upstream of the Kallang River, near the source area.
In the late 20th century, blocking took place not at source, but at the mouth, stopping rivers from meeting the sea. Many coastal mouths or estuaries of major rivers are dammed today. One river that's gagged at the mouth is the mighty Kranji. Historically significant, the river watered Singapore's earliest plantations, sowed the seeds of the country's initial wealth.
Well, the thing about the Kranji River is that it is quite deep and it was navigable. There was a wharf there, and so they would be loading products like Gambia, pepper, other agricultural products onto those ships for international markets.
The open mouth to the north was an entry point for friends and foe. An incident during the war years marred the river's past glory. The Battle of Kranji took place on the beachfront between the mouth of the river to the causeway, which by this time was already destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of litres of oil from nearby tanks were emptied into the sea. Oil slicks floated all over the water, creating a muddy shore. Undeterred, the Japanese crossed by sea. Seeing this, the Allies set the oil slicks on fire.
And it caused the Japanese soldier to retreat. But eventually, the Japanese officer told the Japanese soldiers, "You'll either cross and die by fire burning, or I shoot you from behind."
Many were burnt alive, and the Japanese suffered their biggest loss at this front. But it was banzai in the end. The battle set the stage for the fall of Singapore, and the rest is history. Reservoirs today provide relaxing atmospheres, but the canalization of our rivers has done its damage.
This has a certain impact on the flow of water within our canals, and that affects whether certain species are able to survive and how they are able to move within the sites.
In the new century, we're seeing some rethinking on canalization. Today, new urban plans give rivers a chance to make a comeback.
There's been a trend away from canalisation in recent times. If you look at Bishan Park, they've gone for what's called an ABC water program.
We have naturalized the river, and that then softens the landscape and allows more biodiversity to be able to thrive within.
The ABC Waters program transforms functional drains, canals, and reservoirs into more soulful waterways. A canalized section of the Kallang River was transformed into an environment that would make wildlife pretty happy.
Some of the fish and insects that thrive within our rivers might provide food for animals such as otters, fish eagles, egrets, herons, and they then support a wider ecosystem.
This is just a start. With hundreds of kilometers of concrete surfaces to go, the stream that became a river and then into a canal knows where it will be going. There's no hurry. It'll get there someday. They all know this. Our lost rivers.